That's why the Bible says, and we read in Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart. You got to be very protective. The just shall live by faith. The just doesn't live by sight. Why? Because Satan is trying to speak to you by what you see, by what you hear, by what you touch, and by what you smell. And after you smell, after you touch, after you taste, you look around and you say, you know what? It's over. God has left me. Have you ever said that to yourself? I don't think God is with me. I think God has left me. And the reason why you kind of feel that way is because sometimes you're looking, you're smelling, you're touching, you're tasting, and you're saying, because sometimes if your physical possessions are touched, it'll feel like God is not with you. So here's how we judge that God is with us. We start getting physical blessings. And you say, oh, look at God. Don't you ever say that to you? Look at what God is doing. God is moving in a mighty way. But if God took those things away, God is a spirit. So even if you lost the physical possessions, it doesn't mean that God is not with you. Sometimes what God gives, Satan will touch. And sometimes Satan will touch just to show God that your trust in God is only by the physical thing that he gave you. So if you remember the story of Job, God had gave Job all of these riches to the point where Job was the richest in the East. He was the richest man in the East. So not only was he in good favor with God, but God had showered him with a lot of possessions, and God had showered him with a lot of children, which was a sign of wealth. And so what Satan said, the conversation between Satan and God was this: I'll touch what you gave him physically to let you know he's not with you spiritually. So what is Satan doing in your physical environment right now that's causing you to be afraid? What is Satan doing in your physical environment right now that's challenging your spiritual relationship with God? If you lost all that you possessed, you look at those in the fire in California. There was a gentleman that was being interviewed, and he's just standing there. He said, we don't have nowhere to go. We don't have anything. Everything was in the house. And as they pointed to the house, everything was a crisp. He said, I don't have nothing. Like it's all gone. What if you found out tonight everything you had is gone? Wouldn't that would be a good moment to see how you pray, how you talk to God, and all those things you claim. Jesus, I ain't gonna never leave you. What did Peter say? I'll go into prison, Jesus, and I'll go into death with you. And Jesus said, no, you won't. You won't even get that far. Matter of fact, when the heat comes, you'll deny me 3 times before the sun comes up. Because Jesus was able to look at him and says, not only do you not have conviction, but you're afraid. See, the problem with Peter, when you look at Peter, when he denied Jesus 3 times, he lacked 2 things that damaged his character. The first thing that he lacked was a lack of conviction. Because when they challenged him and said, now notice, when they questioned Peter about, aren't you with Jesus? The Bible says Peter was secretly walking along with Jesus. So if you read the stories, or sometimes if you look in the movies and you see Jesus with the cross on his back, and he's walking to Calvary, and he's walking to be crucified, and he's carrying the cross on his back. If you study the scriptures, what you realize is that actually Peter was walking along with him, but he was trying to do incognito. Is that the right word? He was trying to go incognito. He was trying not to be seen. As he was walking and as he was seeing Jesus, he got recognized along the way. One of them was a maiden, a woman who says, hey, listen, I recognize you. I know, aren't you with him? Now notice, that's not cool. So if you put yourself in that same position, imagine walking down Page Road. And as you're walking down Page Road, I'm in the middle of the road, and there's a riot going on. And you see, they done got me all chained up, and they got whips, and they beating me, and they got people on both sides of Page, and they're saying, and at the end of Page, right at 121, they're gonna burn me. So they walking me down, and they finna burn me at the end of 120. And it's an angry mob. The police ain't doing nothing. Matter of fact, the police are a part of it. And here I am, I'm bloody, and they beat me, and people throwing rocks at me. And you walking along, and you seeing your preacher. And somebody says, hey, ain't you with him? What would you say? Now, you automatically know that if you say yes, they're going to bring you along with me. Right? They'll bring you along with me. When it's not popular to be a Christian, when it don't feel good, when you don't get to sit in cushioned seats. I have a preacher, we communicate every week in India. He preaches in India. And so he showed me pictures one time, and this is something I'll communicate with you all because we want to do some work with them. Their roof caved in. They had a bad storm. Their roof caved in, and they didn't have floors. Their floor is dirt. And he said one day, we lost everything. They had to move to a different place. When they worship, they all sit on the floor. What if it didn't feel good? What if everything that you had was taken away? Sometimes we endure unnecessary punishment because of the fear of losing things, when we talk about fear. And this is why fear actually damages your character. For stuff that you would not, you say, you know what, I wouldn't let nobody treat me that way. You'll end up being treated that way because of the fear of losing something. Sometimes you could be so afraid of losing something that you will endure abuse because for some reason your identity is tied into what you possess. And so I can't lose it because if I lose it, I don't know where to go from here, which means I'm going to hold on to this even though this is hurting me, because if I let it go, I got to walk by faith. So in order to not walk by faith, you know what you end up doing? You end up holding on to something that is familiar. Or you get to a point where you won't address a problem in your life because if you address it, it might go the wrong way. So to avoid the fear or to avoid the possibility that it could go really, really bad, I'll keep my mouth shut and I'll endure abuse. Because if I addressed it, I don't know the outcome, and if I don't know the outcome, that means I would have to walk by faith. I need to say something because I know it's the right thing to say, and I know I need to have this conversation, but they may not like me anymore, they may mistreat me, or it may be the end of our friendship, it may be the end of the relationship, but I need to address this, but let me not address it because I'm familiar with this. And that's why sometimes I believe personally God sometimes shakes up your environment. And the reason why he shakes up your environment is because when you get so comfortable, you don't have to walk by faith. Because you wake up in the morning, there's the job, there's the corner store, and there's nothing about your life that requires for you to walk by faith. And every now and then, I believe sometimes God will take in his spiritual spatula and he'll just shake that little life pan up, and he'll stir the grits and the eggs up just a little bit. He'll put a little buttermilk in there and juice it up just a little bit and change some things around. He'll put some different seasoning in. And then you'll get to a point in your life and say, you know what, I don't recognize this. This is not familiar. And you thought, you know what, I thought I was always going to live here. I thought I was always going to be here. I thought I was going to retire here. I thought we were always going to be friends. I thought we were always take vacation. And then all of a sudden, the whole life has changed. And you know what? Whenever your life changes, it's scary because you don't know, you have not gone this way before, which means you have to walk by what? You have to walk by faith. Don't live your life and keep things in your life to avoid from walking and living by faith. Because when you do that, not only do you suffer abuse, but what you end up doing is you don't allow God to give you greater because you're holding on to familiar. You don't allow God to do something marvelous and great in your life because you're saying, I don't know if it's going to work out. One of the best places for God to really show up in your life is in the unfamiliar, because that means you have to trust him. When you really trust God, he gets close to you. But when you don't feel like you need God, When you feel like I got enough money, I got my place, I got this, I got that, everything counted together, I'm pretty much in a good place. Have you ever noticed that you don't pray as much? Have you ever noticed you don't have a real necessity to really study the Bible? When do you really feel like you want to pray? When life hits you in your chest, all of a sudden you have the strong desire, oh God, I really, really, really need you right now. Sometimes I believe God will let your heart be broken, just so you can learn how to walk by faith. Because you say, I've never been this way before. So we talked about that. A lack of conviction will damage your character. That's why I say, that's why they ask little children, what you want to be when you grow up? Now, they don't know. Little Bobby, he don't know what he want to be. But why they keep asking? Why as adults you keep asking children the same question? What do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want to be? And then what do children do? And what do we say? The purpose of the parents is say, come on, think about it. Think about what you want to be. Why? Because what's the purpose of schooling without a goal? Somebody says, I'm going to college. Oh, wonderful, you're going to go there. What's your major? I don't know, I'm not there yet. We don't accept that answer. You say, come on, you need to get a major. She said, yeah, I've been in college 6 years. What's your major? I don't know yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. You said, no, that's a problem. Because the purpose of school is to end, right? You start with the what? With the end in mind. I started elementary so that I can get out of elementary. It wasn't supposed to be a lifelong, hey, this is, recess for life. It wasn't about having a t-shirt, recess for life. Hey, this is where I'm finna be. They said, no. You start so that one day you can leave so you can go to the next level, so that you can go to the next level. You can go to the next level. You got to be committed to the process. A conviction is understanding that, hey, I understand what I believe, I understand who I am, I know what I will accept, and I know what I won't accept. One of the reasons why you love going to certain establishments or you going to certain businesses, they say, listen, I'm sorry, we don't serve you. You need to have some shoes on and you need to put a shirt on. I said, no. Hey, at this restaurant, I'm sorry, sir, you're going to have a coat. You got to have some type of blazer or something like that. We don't serve t-shirts. We have a standard here. Well, you're not going to get my business. We understood that when we actually opened up. This was our standard. That everybody probably won't want to come here because they probably don't want to. But we're so convicted about the level and standard that we're going to keep that we understood. Now notice this, whenever you have a conviction, you got to be prepared to lose. A person that doesn't have a conviction can be swayed with anybody. A person that doesn't have a conviction, you don't even know what they like, because they like everything. When you're convicted, you got to be prepared to lose. If you're not prepared to lose, then your convictions will kill you. Matter of fact, they'll end up hurting you. So anytime that a person whenever you saying, this is what I'm going to do, when you start saying, you know what, I'm going to start getting up at 4:30 every morning. Once you make that conviction, 4:30 every morning, I already know what your nights are going to be. You got to give something up. You can't be wilding out, watching TV 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and then talking about I'm going to get up 3 hours. That's not, you got to give up something. Every conviction, so I want to drive this in your spirit. Every conviction, I know the New Year's coming up and resolutions are coming. Fake resolutions are coming. Every conviction requires for you to lose something. And so sometimes we claim we want something, but we don't want to lose. So what ends up happening is your convictions end up being challenged, and you end up letting a conviction go. We talked about 3 things that are necessary for conviction. You got to have courage. You got to have courage to be able to say, I'm going to forego this for something greater because I believe in this. I'm going to stay here no matter what. I believe in this. I believe in the vision. I believe in the fruit. I believe in the product. I know what this can do, so I'm going to stick with it. It's hard being around people that have no conviction because they'll go anywhere. If the wind blow left, they'll go left. If the wind go right, they'll go right. You can't build any life. You can't build anything without a conviction, because it requires for you to dig in. Here we are. Here we are in Genesis, and I want to look at unresolved pain. Unresolved pain is another thing that will damage your character. Unresolved pain. Now, pain is not necessarily bad. Pain can be good and pain can be bad, but pain is pain. Unresolved pain is what is damaging. Here we are in Genesis chapter 45, beginning at verse 1. And in Genesis chapter 45 and verse 1, the Bible says, Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him. And he did what? He cried. Now, at 17 years old, he was sold by his brothers. His brothers took him, stripped him of his coat, they put him in a pit, and they were going to kill him. So just imagine you're sitting in a pit and you can overhear your brothers saying, we need to get here, we need to remove him from the earth. We want to kill him. Only one brother spoke up and said, let's not kill him, let's sell him. So what ends up happening is his cousins are actually traveling along the way. His brothers sell Joseph to their cousins. Ain't that a family reunion? His cousins end up sending him and selling him as a slave, end up selling him to an Egyptian called Potiphar. He goes to Potiphar's house as a slave. Think about Joseph. The only reason I'm here is because my brothers betrayed me. They sold me. They talked about killing me. Matter of fact, if Joseph would have wilded out, you would have understood. If you would have met Joseph in the streets and he was like, I don't care no more, and you said, well, what happened to him? You would say, nah, you kind of give him a pass because he come from a bad, his family kind of tripped out on him. All his brothers, he got a bad background. Here's the thing about Joseph. Joseph never let his past give him a license to do wrong. Regardless of what happened to Joseph, Joseph would do right. That's conviction. So one thing I can see about Joseph is Joseph had conviction, because even though you do wrong to me, or even though something bad happens to me, that doesn't mean that I'm going to get out of character and do something against my own conviction. So Joseph would do right. So when Joseph was in Potiphar's house, he was doing right. The Bible says that God had exalted him and blessed him while he was there. And then Potiphar's wife wanted to have relations with him. And so when he rejected her, he said, okay, well then I'm gonna get back at you. And she called rape on Joseph. Potiphar came home. His wife was crying. She had grabbed Joseph's coat and she was lying in the bed with Joseph's coat and said, hey, he tried to rape me. Potiphar said, hey man, you got to get out. They arrested him. Can you imagine? He was number 2 in all of that in Potiphar's house, in that estate. He was number 2. And imagine, you've been running the estate. God has been blessing you. You've been doing good. Even though when you number 2 and your boss is in the service of the Egyptians, and you have access to all of Potiphar's horses, and you a slave, don't you think maybe at one point Joseph would have jumped on one of them horses and went back home? But here's the problem, I can't go back home, because home is where they wanted to do what to me? They wanted to kill me. So I can imagine how Joseph must have felt. I can't even go home. What home? I don't have no home. I don't have no family either. Maybe, you know what I'm gonna do? Maybe I'm gonna just try to make it the best here. That hurt me what they did, but you know what? I'm gonna move on, and as I move on, I'm gonna try to make a better life for myself. So look at me now. I was just a son in my father's house, and I was the youngest amongst all my brothers, but here I am now. I'm doing good. I'm in Egypt now, and you know what? Forget going home. I'm number 2 in the whole estate. Matter of fact, I run this whole estate. I mean, everybody got problems. I got Sister Potiphar. Other than that, everything is going well, and that one little problem. And now all of a sudden, he's getting arrested. And as he's getting arrested, he's getting taken out of Potiphar's house. And everybody's pointing, hey, there's that rapist. He tried to rape Potiphar's house. And up to this point, Joseph is a virgin. He's not even been on. So imagine you've been a virgin and you've been accused of rape. And as a slave, you don't have no space to go out on dates. He couldn't go down to the Egyptian river and take some of the Egyptian women out on dates. And he's a slave. But now you're going to prison. So then he goes to the Egyptian prison. And as he goes to the Egyptian prison, now he's sitting here saying, how did I get here? I was in my father's house. They hated my dreams. They threw me in a pit. They took my father's coat, the gift that he gave me. They wanted to kill me, ended up selling me like I was some merchandise. I ended up going to Potiphar's house, but God blessed me. I finally got to a good place where everything was kind of getting okay, and then she messed up everything. Potiphar's wife messed up I wasn't even messing with her. She just messed up everything. She don't even understand. I come from a bad background. I lost all my brothers. My mama died when I was young. Do y'all remember the story of Jacob and Rachel and Leah? But at this time, Joseph's mama's passed. Only Jacob is living. So imagine the grief of losing them all. I lost my mother. I lost all my brothers. They've rejected me. I've been accused of rape, and now I'm sitting here in prison. I'm trying to figure out what to do. The Bible says while he was in prison, that God had exalted him and allowed him to be the #1 prisoner in prison. And so he's sitting there, and he goes to the baker and the butler. And the baker and the butler both have dreams and they have an issue. And they said, hey, we know that we feel like you have this gift, and could you interpret our dreams for him? So he says to the baker, he said, hey man, I had this vision. You messed up. You gonna get out of here, but you're not finna get out of jail. You're not gonna walk out. You going out in a body bag. For some reason, maybe you can't cook that well or whatever, but you finna die, baker. He goes to the butler and says, now butler, you finna make it out. He said, not only are you gonna make it out, he says, but this is what I'm gonna ask you to do. Can you remember me when you make it out? The butler said, hey, no problem. Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for the conference. He said, yeah, you're gonna be restored back to your old position, so don't even worry about it. But when you get back to Pharaoh, just remember me. The Bible says that the baker, he got carried out in the body bag. His biscuits didn't turn out the way Pharaoh wanted him to be, so Pharaoh had killed him. The butler had made it out, but when the butler had made it out, the Bible says the butler forgot. So imagine Joseph just sitting in prison for years saying, man, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like it wasn't your fault, but the reason why you're here is because of other people's actions and other people's decisions? And it wasn't your fault, but you had to respond to them. So now I'm in this situation, and I was supposed to be, because I had some other better plan for my life. I was supposed to do this and do it, but that person tripped, and then this person tripped. And the only reason you hurting right now is because of other people's actions and behaviors, and because they didn't care, or because they were insensitive, or because everybody was doing their own thing. And if Potiphar's wife would have just been kind to me, I may have still just been free and been working. If my brothers would have just loved me, if my family with my father would have fought for me, if my mama was still here. See, the only reason I'm in this situation is because of other people's behaviors. Have you ever been in a situation where you looked around and said, I'm only here because of how other people have tripped? And I've responded, I've had to respond to their actions, their mistakes, their behaviors, or their evilness, or their wickedness. And now I'm in this situation, and it's not my fault that I'm in this situation. And you know what I want to do? I want to do me, but I got convictions. So Joseph had convictions. He was still honorable before God. You know, one thing I realized about God, when bad things happen to you, I believe sometimes God sits and watches, see how you behave. You can't tell God, well, God, the only reason I did it because I was mad. So what? That doesn't. I'm still God in your bad situation. You don't want me to stop being God just because you don't feel good. And just because something bad has happened to you, I'm still going to be God. But I need to know that you're still going to be you. Don't change on me just because the weather changes. Don't change on me just because your heart is broken. Don't change on me just because people betray you. I need you to still be you, because I'll bless you in a prison and I'll bless you in Potiphar's house. I'll still be with you in spite of. So here's what happened. Some time ago, Pharaoh has a dream, and when Pharaoh has a dream, nobody can interpret it. They say, hey, the butler remembers, you know what? There was this dude back in the pen that I used to room with. He had this gift. He helped me out. Let me go call him. Joseph comes. He interprets the dream for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, you know what? Thank you so much for breaking down what was troubling me. I'm going to make you number 2 in all of Egypt. The Bible says that Pharaoh took off his ring, put it on Joseph. The Bible says he took off and put the robe on Joseph and made him ride in the second chariot only behind him. So what that means is Joseph went from Suge Knight. He went from Suge Knight to Vice President of the United States. Think about that jump. Think about that jump. You're in prison. You go straight from prison to being number 2. So you go from prison to now being the vice president of the United States. You can go in it. Matter of fact, when you speak of the authority of Egypt wherever you go. And the responsibility that Pharaoh gave him, I'm going to make, this is my favorite part, I'm going to make you responsible over all the food. That means if anybody going to eat, they got to come talk to you. So here's Joseph now. So then here's what I begin to realize. Life can hit you and you'll start bleeding. But the beautiful thing about God is God will let you move on. And you know what happens a little while longer? Life can hit you again. And your ribs are broken. And you're still bleeding from your last. And your ribs are broken. But it's funny, sometimes God will still let you move on. Life can hit you again and you say, you know what? I ain't worried about it. And some of us, we know how to live with pain. You know how to go to bed in pain. You know how to go to bed in depression. You know how to wake up in depression. You know how to go to bed in sorrow. You know how to cry and nobody knows that tears are coming out of your eyes. You know what it's like to just live in pain. It's just pain all over. Now, just because a person moves on doesn't mean that the pain has been left behind. I got hurt here. Even though now in life I'm here, sometimes you still hurting from what happened yesterday. Moving on, if you're not careful, moving on is deceptive because it doesn't mean that the problem is resolved. It just means you moved on. Somebody can do you dirty, and you know what? You can go get a better job, you can get a better house, you can get a better car. You're looking good now, you're looking fabulous. You taking Instagram photos, and you got a new do, and all of a sudden you flying over there, and you be in Paris, you in your infinity pool, and you eating sushi and that little nasty rice, and you doing all of that, and you just living your life now. And somebody says, well, you are great. Look at, and they don't know you still cry at night. You still cry at night for something that happened in 1998. You still having nightmares. You still having nightmares over something that happened in your childhood in 89, in 85. Something that happened in 2003 is still causing you to bleed today, even though you are looking fabulous. And look at all that you've accomplished. You know what I realized? Trophies are deceptive because they give the appearance that the person who has achieved the trophy is in a great place. And sometimes when people do you dirty, it actually gives you energy to accomplish great things. I'm going to show them that they didn't break me, but actually you are broken. And it is your brokenness that actually causes you to do great things. Sometimes when people do you dirty and stab you in the back and do all kind of wrong, it actually gives you strength. It actually causes you to grow. You see me growing? You see, it'll cause you to inflate. And all of a sudden, you start running faster. And you broken. And you stronger. And you leaping tall buildings. And you doing all of these amazing things now that you wasn't doing before. And what caused that? You cried your eyes out. Okay, I'm gonna get my life together, and then you all of a sudden you got all of these great things going on. You started your new business and you got all of these new accomplishments. Oh, wonderful. But you're not well though. You're still not well. You could be great at moving on and horrible at healing. Because moving on and healing is not the same thing. You can bounce around to 10 and 15 different churches and still be crying over the first church. You can move on to 5 and 10 different relationships and you still crying over this particular person. And the person that's right in front of your face has no idea that it's this that's causing you. You could be at another job and you can hate everybody at the job because you're still mad that job fired you. I'm talking about the job 2 jobs ago fired you, and you still angry, and you still bitter, but you didn't move on. And you know what? You make more money now. You got better benefits, but you still bitter. It still hurts. You still bleed. You still struggle. Notice this, moving on is not the same thing as healing. So in Genesis chapter 45, very quickly, verse 1, then Joseph could not refrain himself. He's a grown man now. What happened back then? I was 17 years old. Now he's in his 30s. In Genesis chapter 45, Joseph is now in his 30s. So much time has passed. That was decades ago. Now, he's a grown man, he is married, and he has children. His brothers walk in Genesis 45, and he sees his brothers, and the Bible says in verse 1, he couldn't what? He couldn't refrain himself. Before all them, the them in that verse is his family, is his brothers, whom he has not seen since he was 17. And the Bible says, and he cried. Why is he crying? He's crying over something that happened some 13, 14, 15, 16 years ago. Sometimes I think about this. Have you ever been talking about a subject, and as you start talking, it happens like this? You ain't got to say, man, just nod your head if what I'm saying is true. You could talk about a subject, and you could be like, first of all, that's not what happened. Because at that moment, you said this and you was in a really bad place. And so when he opened up the screen door, because it was just, and somebody said, what's going on? You talking about something 10 years ago. But have you ever get to start talking about something? And all of a sudden, it just come up. Somebody said, no, because Uncle Joe, before he passed, that Uncle Joe, no, because he told me that, and all of a sudden you get emotional. Somebody said, what's going on? Where is this coming from? You know where it's coming from? It's coming from your back hip all the way up here. It is right. It's been sitting there. That's that little knot in the back. It's been sitting there. Something from 20 years ago can be sitting right here. It could be sitting right here in the middle of your chest. And after you get to talking about it, all of a sudden you get angry. All of a sudden you get real frustrated. And you don't even know why you're so angry. And you hear people say this, I don't want to talk about it no more. Somebody said, well, we need to get to, no, I don't want to talk to you. No, because I have unresolved pain. There's nothing wrong with pain. It's just that when it hasn't been processed and it's unresolved, it stays. And you end up being like Joseph. And the Bible says he was trying to keep it in, but he couldn't keep it in. The Bible says he just started crying. Somebody said, Joseph, what you cry for? That happened a long time ago. You should be over that. Don't let anybody tell you you're supposed to be over something. Because you can't put a time on healing. What hurt you, me and you might go through the same thing, but it may take me 3 years and it may take you 6 months. What may take you 2 weeks may take me 9 weeks. What you could probably get over and be better in an hour, it's gonna take me the rest of the day. You're gonna have to, I'll see you tomorrow. You good the next hour. Hey, you good? No, we're not good, but we be good in the morning though. I need to go to bed, because it's gonna take me a minute. You know why? Because all of our hearts are not the same. Our mind is not the same. We're different people. So one thing we gotta be real careful of is don't judge where a person is supposed to be by your standard. There are some things that can happen to me, it roll off like it's water. Like, oh, that ain't nothing. That doesn't mean that that's necessarily you. The same thing can happen to you and it can break you. And I'm like, oh, that little thing? Well, it ain't little to you. It's a big thing to you. Or it's serious to you. Or that thing actually hurt you. It didn't even hurt me. I thought it was funny. I laughed at it. You cried at it. Because we're not the what? We're not all the same. So the Bible says, he caused every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him. You know what Joseph said? Joseph said, everybody get out the room. He's the second command in all of the kingdom, so you're going to obey. Everybody get out the room. I ain't never seen Joseph like this. He ain't never even been this emotional before. And the Bible says, while Joseph made himself known unto his brothers, and he wept, what? He wept out loud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard, saying, wait a minute, what is that? Very quickly, I want you to look at a few verses and we'll close. Very quickly, I want you to turn to Psalms 34. Psalm 34, and I want you to look at verse 18. The righteous cry, and the Lord what? So it's not that the Lord doesn't hear the cry. The righteous cry, and the Lord hears, and he will deliver them out of their what? Now, it's not to say that the Lord will stop trouble. And it's not to say that the Lord won't let you get in trouble. But the Lord will deliver you out of the trouble. I would prefer the Lord to stop all trouble so that I don't even have to get in it. But sometimes the trouble is necessary. Sometimes the trouble is a blessing. But whatever you find yourself in, when you cry, the Bible says the Lord will deliver you out. Look at verse 18. The Lord is close unto them that are of a what? Of a broken heart. And he saves such as be of a contrite spirit. He says, when your spirit is broken and when your heart is broken, that's when I'm closer to you. Isn't that comforting? When your heart is broken and when your spirit is broken, that's when I'm close to you. Now, you know what I want God to do? God snatched me from here so I don't feel no pain. But I realize this. The only way for you to be strong is you got to experience pain. If I stood up here tonight and say, you know what? I just want to let y'all know my 2019 goal. I have a personal goal. My 2019 goal is that I want to be a world-class sprinter. I want to be a world-class sprinter. Right? Now, I don't want to run that much, but I want to be a world-class sprinter. that goal has pain in it. That goal has pain in it. If I say, you know what, one of the things that I want to do is I want to be able to accomplish this. I want to be able to have this. Any major goal that you may have has pain in it. If you ask God for strength, and here's what you may not realize. When you ask God for strength, you know what you're asking him for? To send pain. Somebody going to the gym and say, hey, I want to be stronger. You sure? Is that what that's what you say you want? So notice what they do in the gym to make you stronger. They find out how much you can lift. And then they put on top of you more than you can lift. Because you have to be able to lift what you can't lift so that you can get stronger. So when we take prayer requests tonight and say, Lord, I pray for strength. Is that what you say? Oh, you want strength? Well, okay, Lord, give me the strength so that I can be able to deal with. Well, if you want strength to deal with the things that you have that's in front of you, I gotta give you a weight that's heavier than you. And then you gotta push against it so that a muscle and strength can be produced so that you can be stronger. You can't get stronger without experiencing pain. Did you know that? Pain is so necessary for you to be able to accomplish the task that God has for you, but you can't accomplish it unless you experience what? So you know what you have to do? You have to thank God for the pain, but unresolved pain is unhealthy pain. Joseph could not change what his brothers did to him. He needed to deal with that. He needed to deal with that. Very quickly, like I said, the Bible says he's close to you. I want you to turn your Bibles to 2 Corinthians chapter 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 1. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, and I want us to begin in verse 3. 2 Corinthians. The Bible says, blessed be, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 3. Blessed be God, even the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. He's the Father of mercies, and he's the God of what? He's the God of all comfort. So notice this. Whenever you're in a difficult and a bad situation, when you run to something else or someone else other than God, you are running away from the comfort you need. Somebody says, I'm hurting, I'm not feeling good. God is the God of all comfort. You got to train yourself to run to God first. Because if you run to anybody else, that's a false sense of comfort. That's a placebo. Is that what that is? It's fake. Whenever your heart is hurting, or whenever you're in a bad place, you're not going to want to run to God. You're going to want to run to something you can touch, smell, and see. Because you're human. But if you're spiritual, you know that when you're hurting, you got to train and put your body into subjection and connect to God first. It's not to say that you shouldn't connect with people, but where's all your comfort going to come from? You could talk to something that you can see or touch for 6 hours, and they'll never give you what God can give you in just a moment of connecting with him. So you want to train yourself to run to God first. Notice what he says. He's the God of all comfort. Verse 4, who comforts us in all our what? He comforts us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to what? That are in any trouble. So here's why God doesn't snatch you out of trouble. Sometimes God lets you get in trouble so that you can deal with the trouble, so that he can come down and he can comfort you in the trouble, so that you can feel the comfort in the trouble, so then you can turn around and you can comfort other people how God comforted you in the trouble. How do you become a good nurse? One of the best ways to become a good nurse is for you to understand sickness and for somebody to care for you. Have anybody ever been cared for when you've been really, really sick? Matter of fact, most of you tend to people who are sick based upon how your mother or whoever your caretaker cared for you when you were sick. So if you were sick, and every time you were sick, they came and threw some water in your face. Come on, wake up, come on, shake it off, shake that flu off. When you get older, how are you gonna treat somebody when they get sick? Wake up, shake that flu off. And then you at the funeral saying, I don't know what happened. that didn't work. God said, I'm gonna let you stay in the trouble. I'm the God of all comfort. I'm not snatching you out of the trouble. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get in the trouble with you. And when I get in the trouble with you, I'm going to comfort you in the trouble because you need the pain. You need to be hurt because you won't get stronger until you get hurt. You need to cry. You need to feel lost. And God, I don't know what to do. Yes, I need you to feel that. Now that you feel, now I'm going to comfort you and I'm going to walk you toward health one day at a time. So that you can turn around and you can hold somebody else's hand when their life is turned upside down. Have anybody ever gone through something and you looked at another person and you said, I've been through that? What's your response? You don't go crazy like they going crazy. You know what you tell them? Calm down. It's going to be all right. The gas light come on all the time. It's going to be okay. You got another 30 miles. I done been here before. It's going to be okay. Chill. It's going to be okay. You're going to make... The light is on. Trust. You're good. Because you didn't what? You didn't been there before. Somebody said, hey, I was lied on. First, I've been lied on too. It's going to be okay. I've been betrayed. I know how, you know what? And when you know how I feel, you don't even try to talk to them in that moment. You're like, no, I get it. You're going to have to go through it. No, I get it. You know what? I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Shut the door, cut your phone off. Hey, listen, don't listen to that. Hey, don't go in. And you start giving instructions. How are you able to give those good instructions? And somebody said, oh, you're a godsend. Why are you a godsend? Because God sent me in trouble, comforted me in trouble, and then he sent me to you. So now I'm blessing you. I know what it's like to almost lose your life and having to turn your life around. I know what it's like to have an addiction and then you gotta let that addiction. I know what it's like to put your life up, and I know what it's like to have to let family go. I know what it's like to have this. And God has put you through all of these experiences so that he can send you into people's life so you can be an angel. And you know what? If we were able to really articulate it, your broken heart and your tears is medicine in this season for my life. I'm glad God allowed your heart to be broken and for you to feel lost and for you to feel helpless and for you to feel betrayed and for you to be done wrong so that you can know what to say to me. Because I didn't have anybody else to turn to but you. I'm glad God gave you answers in trouble. God gives answers in trouble. The Bible says, by where he comforted, we ourselves are comforted of God. Look at verse 5. For as the sufferings of Christ abound in us, so our consolation also aboundeth by what? And whether we be afflicted, it is for your what? If we're afflicted, it's so that you can feel better. You know what I believe sometimes? Sometimes I feel like God lets me go through things so that I can preach things. And I don't want to have them sermons. I prefer for you. Matter of fact, I wish it was reversed. Why don't you preach to me? I don't want to, but sometimes God will let you go through things first Because there's somebody behind you that needs that word. They need that instruction. If anybody remembers the end of Genesis, or at the end of Joseph, he came to a revelation. He says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for what? But God meant it for... He did not get that. That's resolved pain. That's him stepping back saying, I get it now. Remember when Paul said, I got a thorn in my flesh and I want to get rid of it. And then Jesus says, my grace is sufficient. And then Paul said, I realize now, because I was going through this pain and it was hurting me and it was shutting me down. But it was only until I resolved it and understood it and put it in its proper place. He says, my weakness is when God is strong. So God had to break me down so that I can be completely weak, so that he can have full strength in my life. When he realized that, that's when Paul said in Corinthians, now I can rejoice. You can't rejoice if your pain is unresolved, because you will look at what you're going through as a punishment. God, why you let me go through this? But if you looked at the pain from a different angle, it's actually not only your blessing, you'll be stronger, and that way people won't break you like that anymore. You only got one time to break me that way. Then I promise you, it don't hurt the same the second time. You got one time to do me like that. The second time, I may still cry the second time, but I promise you, it's not that many tears. It's that one. It'll be that one tear. You're not finna get the snot and the hole. I'm not finna fall out and don't know what to do. You gonna get that cold, stone cold Steve Austin one tear. And then I'm gonna say what? Nah, it's good. Nah, I'm straight. Now we good at moving on. But we got to do a better job of resolving our pain, because pain changes you. I'm done. Pain changes you. And when pain stays too long in the heart, when it stays too long up here, it changes your character. And everything starts looking black. Everything starts looking cold. And you can't rejoice in God. It'll mess up your praise. It'll mess up your worship. Because all you feel when you wake up, when you go throughout the day, when you go to bed, all you feel is pain. But there's a good kind of pain if you put it in the right perspective. After you have a good workout, let's say you done ran and you trying to get it together and you done got your, and then you get home and they see you walking like this. They see you and they say, you okay? And you say, you know what? I'm hurting, but I know it's gonna be good in the morning. And then you get up in the morning and you start looking at your shoulders. Look at that. You start looking in the mirror. And you start because the pain produces a product. And if you accept and take pain in the proper way, it will shape you in a righteous way. And they will look at you and say, you're really walking with God. But in order to walk with God, you gotta carry a cross like Christ carried his. Just like Christ suffered, you gotta suffer too. And if you're trying to avoid suffering, then I don't want to be around you. I'm not gonna like your character. But if you can embrace it, it will give you a depth of wisdom. It will give you a peace. It will give you a sense of knowledge, and it will give you a sense of understanding that only pain can give you. And when you speak, people will look at you and be like, you know, I can hear you, I can listen to you, because I know you know. I know you know what it feels like, and maybe you can help me to walk out.